Welcome, everyone, to the Energy Medicine Summit. I'm so honored to have Dr. Bradley Nelson join us today. And for those of you who don't know Dr. Nelson, he's a holistic chiropractor and medical intuitive, and he is one of the world's foremost experts in the emerging fields of bioenergetic medicine and energy psychology. Welcome, Dr. Nelson. It's really an honor to interview you today.
Well, thank you, Christine. It's really great to be here.
Oh, well, I think this is such an important topic, and you probably see your work unfold and evolve, with the changing times and the time that we're all in. I think this is just, I'm really passionate and excited to share people these tools and your framework so people can feel empowered, because none of us are immune from stress right now. None of us are immune from all of the things that are happening within, the collective experience and also within our own lives. And I think you have just a beautiful framework to navigate all of this. So we'll dive in, and you obviously wrote this wonderful book called The Emotion Code, and you really have seen that connection between emotions that get trapped in the body and how that can really manifest in physical symptoms. So can you just walk us through this knowledge of how trapped emotions really affect our health?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it starts off really with the understanding that these bodies of ours, even though they seem so solid and three-dimensional and they have weight and so on, are actually made of energy. If you look at your hand, for example, your hand looks pretty solid, but if you magnify that hand under a big enough microscope and you keep zooming in, pretty soon you're looking at the cells of the hand, and that doesn't look like your hand at all. And you keep zooming in and you see the parts of the cell, and then you start looking at the DNA and the molecules that make up the DNA. And as you continue to zoom in, eventually you're looking face to face with a single individual atom. And you look inside the atom and you see there's really nothing in there. It's all just energy, some little infinitesimally tiny energy zipping around at the speed of light. And that's really what we are. We're all beings of pure energy. So we know that we can measure thoughts electronically. We can measure emotions as well. And it seems that emotions have different frequencies, which makes sense. Every emotion has its own specific, unique vibrational energy. And so if you're feeling an emotion of anger, you're feeling a certain vibration, a certain frequency of energy, because everything is energy. And that's a different frequency than an emotion of sadness or an emotion of grief. They're all different. But if you're feeling an emotion that's very powerful, maybe you're really upset about something, maybe you're very deeply grieved, or you're really depressed or something, what can happen is that vibrational energy can be too much for the body. And so that when that event is over, when the bully moves away, or your divorce is finalized, or you quit that job and get a better job, what happens is sometimes some of that emotional energy is still with you. And what these trapped emotions, we call these trapped emotions, literally our emotional baggage. And a trapped emotion is a little ball of energy from about the size of a baseball to about the size of a softball. And what these do is they really have two effects on us. They cause physical trouble for us, physical symptoms for us. In fact, if you're listening to this right now and you're in physical pain, there's a 9 out of 10 chance that the physical pain you're having right now is actually due to some emotional baggage that you have. And that baggage may go back many years in your life, or you might have picked it up last week. The reason why trapped emotions cause physical pain is because what a trapped emotion does, wherever it lodges in the body, remember, it's a little ball of energy, wherever these lodge in the body, they will have this distorting effect on the energy field of the body. So when you distort the energy field of the body continually over and over for years, eventually what happens is you start to manifest physical symptoms from that. And the reason for that is because when you distort the energy field of the body, well, of course, you're interfering with chemical reactions going on in that little area, interfering with the lymph flow, the blood flow. You're interfering with all of these things. And so when the energy field is being distorted in that way, eventually you can start to have physical symptoms. And I remember one of the first times that I saw this happen. There was a woman that came in to see me who thought she was having a heart attack. And she had crushing chest pain, difficulty breathing. She'd been a patient of mine before. I hadn't seen her for a few months. And her left arm was completely numb. Left side of her face was totally numb. And I told my staff, it looks like she's having a heart attack. We might need an ambulance. Luckily, we were right next to a medical center. And but very quickly, I did some testing on her. And what I found was she had a trapped emotion, and the emotion was grief. Now, I was able to do a little testing and figure out when this had happened. And we teach this, of course, in the emotion code. And very quickly, I figured out that this had happened about 3 years before. This grief had gotten lodged in her body 3 years before. And when I arrived at that, she burst into tears. And she said, I can't believe that's affecting me. I thought I dealt with all that. And I said, well, what in the world happened? And she said that 3 years before, her husband had been having an affair. And she found out about it and confronted him with the evidence. And their marriage blew up. And they ended up getting divorced. And it was so tragic, really. It was such a betrayal. She was really deeply in love with that guy and planned on being with him forever. But it was over. And she spent a year going to therapy and dealing with it mentally, and had actually put it behind her and had recently gotten remarried. And so as far as she was concerned, that ex was just her ex, and it was all over and all behind her. But as far as her body was concerned, that betrayal and the grief and all the sadness that she felt was still there. And when I released that trapped emotion from her, which just takes a few seconds, the feeling came back into her arm and into her face just almost instantly. And the chest pain, the difficulty breathing was gone, just like that. And she left the office about 10 minutes later after joking with me and my staff. And she's never had another problem like that. But, you know, I remember after she left my office, sitting down at my desk, and my mind was reeling. I was thinking, how in the world, what did I just witness? How is it possible that an emotion like that can cause symptoms like that can be so powerful? Well, now we know that trapped emotions cause us to experience in an accentuated way their particular frequency. So if you went through something and you felt an intense emotion of grief or depression or sadness or frustration at some point in your life, you will more easily slide into that feeling now because that energy is in your body. Another great example of this that happened to me when I was in practice was a man that came in to see me who had really serious low back pain. On a 0 to 10 scale, he was a 9. If you're a 10, you go to the ER. And so I started talking with him and started testing him, and I found that he had a trapped emotion of anger, and traced it back using muscle testing. It went back 20 years. And he said, I remember, he said, I know what that's about. It was a work situation. He was falsely accused of something and was very angry, very upset. That emotion was so powerful. It was kind of overwhelming. And the energy of that became trapped in his body. So that after that event was over, and I mean, he hadn't worked at that job for many, many years, but yet his body was carrying this emotional energy, and it was distorting the energy field of his body in this continual way for all of these years. Finally, it brought him in to see me. So when I released that trapped emotion, instantly the pain level went from 9 to 0. And he couldn't believe it. He kept bending over and exclaiming and twisting this way and that way. And I was grateful that it worked so well. That's what he'd come in for, was his back pain. And so what we see is that 90% of all the physical pain that people have has an emotional basis. It's just the most amazing thing. But I want you to think about it for a moment. Imagine learning the emotion code and working on a friend who's got back pain like that and seeing it go away, or a friend who's got migraine headaches or neck pain or knee pain or whatever. And 9 out of 10 times, you'll knock it right out of the park. But what's even more fascinating is that a couple of days later, this man came back in to see me again. And here's what he said to me. He said, you know, Dr. Nelson, he said, my back pain is still gone. I still can't believe it. But he said, when I came in here, I had another problem that I didn't tell you about. He said, for as long as I can remember, I've basically been what you would call a rageaholic. He said, I'm always yelling at my wife and my kids. He said, I have to watch the road rage. I've been to anger management several times. It hasn't really helped me. But he said, since you released that trapped emotion of anger from me, I feel really different. I feel kind of peaceful and relaxed. And he said, things that used to really set me off don't set me off anymore. And he said, I feel so different. He said, how did that work? And at the time, I said, well, I'm not really sure, but here's what we believe. Okay. What we believe is that when you have a trapped emotion, like this guy had this trapped emotion, this ball of anger in his low back, when a situation would come along in his life where he might tend to feel the emotion of anger, he would feel it much more easily, much more readily than he otherwise would have. Why? Because literally part of his body was feeling that emotion, that frequency of anger 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when you release a trapped emotion like this, suddenly things can change immediately because that frequency is gone from the body. So that's a little bit of an overview on how these trapped emotions affect us. We all have them. We all have them. And you can think of everybody that you know as dragging around all of these suitcases full of rocks. And that's all the emotional baggage that they have in their life. And believe me, it takes work to drag all that emotional junk through your life. And then people wonder why they aren't succeeding. And they wonder why they can't find love, or why the same dumb things start showing up in their life, that they can't seem to break out. They can't seem to choose a different kind of person for a mate. It's always this certain type of person, or their bank account seems like it has holes in it and they can't seem to ever save any money or ever get ahead. And it's all about our emotional baggage. Emotional baggage, trapped emotions, are present in every disease process. Every disease process that I've seen in 33 years now has had emotional baggage as a component. So if you're dealing with some kind of a disease process, or if you're trying to get healthier, you may be doing everything else right. You might be taking all the right supplements. You might have great positive mental attitude. You may exercise regularly. But if you've got emotional baggage that is underlying your inability to get well, then if you don't address that, you may not get well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that thank you for sharing those anecdotes too. I love hearing how this really unfolds in real time, and you never forget these events, right? When you witness them, it really just propelled you probably on your path in so many ways. And I I have so many directions I'd love to take this, and I as you're talking, and I see patients with chronic illness, and I totally value and see also real time what you're sharing. And what we're really looking at, I'm a naturopathic doctor, and so we're always saying we're looking at the root cause of disease. And we unless you're in circles like the one that we're having, the conversations we're having, we modern society really doesn't acknowledge this in any way that I think really we should, and the paradigm will shift, of course, as we do this more. And so it's almost like our physical bodies are a barometer of our unhealed emotional baggage or trauma. Is that what, just to summarize very succinctly,
yeah.
what you've experienced? And it makes me think like, okay, if we want to, I want to go down this path a couple ways, but just to plant the seed here too, if people, like, how should we be going through life emotionally? Like, we're gonna, right now, none of us are free from stress. None of us, there's plenty probably life events always to gather and collect baggage. So like, how do you navigate your life? Like, is there a practice or a way that you move through emotions so they don't become trapped and create disease in your body?
Well, that's a great question. And the last chapter in the Emotion Code book is about life without trapped emotions. So a couple of interesting things that I want to mention here. One of the things that's interesting and that we point out in the book is that many people are kind of at the mercy of their emotions. They go through their lives and they just have this feeling that if an emotion comes up for them, they're obligated to feel that emotion. And the reality of it is we can choose the emotions that we feel. The emotions that come up for us when things happen in our lives are really messages from the deep subconscious. And the more emotional baggage you have, the more difficult it is to navigate life on an even keel without falling off the edge one side or the other into the intensity of negative emotions. And the interesting thing about it is you can look at your life this way. Imagine that your emotional reservoir in your body, in your spirit, is like a glass. And the more emotional baggage you have, the more emotional experiences that you have, the more open loops of emotional experiences that you have, the more full that glass becomes. And the more difficult it is to really be who you are supposed to be in this world, because your emotions they're not who you are, but they will distract you and they will deviate you from the direction and the path that you could take in your life that could be on a higher level. People talk all the time about living as an ascended being or living in an ascended way. And in my mind, that's all about developing your ability to love unconditionally. But what holds you back from that is your emotional baggage in so many ways. So think about it this way. Most people have an emotional glass that is most of the way full, if not all the way full. And then something comes along in life like a pandemic. And there's all this new stress, all these new emotions coming along, and job stresses and work and family and social anxiety and everything else. And all of a sudden, there's nowhere to put any more emotional baggage. And so it's overflowing. And those are the people who are really having a difficult time in this time that we're living in. What's fascinating is as you start to get rid of the emotional baggage that you've accumulated during your lifetime, that glass starts to become less full. And so now you've got room to put new emotional experiences. And as you empty out that glass, you get to a certain point, and it's like stepping into this, stepping out of the old skin that you've been wearing into this new state of being that's really who you were supposed to be, who you were designed to be. And it's a wonderful thing because not only are you helping your body to function better and feel better, because trapped emotions cause so many issues for us, from depression and anxiety to phobias and panic attacks and PTSD and eating disorders and self-sabotage of all kinds, to all of this physical pain, but also all these other things we deal with that are so commonplace, like digestive problems and infertility and asthma and on and on and on. Every case of cancer, for example, that I've seen always had emotional baggage there. Every disease process has an emotional component. So as you start to get rid of that baggage, you start to actually ascend this vibrational ladder, because think of it this way. When we come into this world, for the most part, we have this pure, clean, clear energy field, except for maybe some inherited emotional baggage that happens at conception. And we talk about how to get rid of those too. That's in the emotion code as well. So what happens then is we start off, for the most part, as a clear, clean energy field. But then as things happen to us, we experience these intense emotions. We develop these little clouds of darkness in that clear energy field. And those are our trapped emotions. And they can lodge anywhere. But gradually, as you pick up more and more of these, by the time you get to be middle-aged, instead of having this clear, clean, pure energy field, what you have is a cloudy day. You've got all these little dark clouds of emotional baggage in there. And so it can be hard to feel positive emotions. It can be hard to really manifest what you're capable of, because instead of being this beautiful, clear, clean energy field, you're a cloudy day. But as you start to get rid of these, you see what's left is this clear, clean energy field, this beautiful, perfect part of you, the real you that you're supposed to be. And that's really one of the most exciting things about this work to me, is that people are finding that when they remove enough of their emotional baggage, they find that their ability to love increases, their ability to feel positive emotions and to stay on the positive side of the emotional scale shifts dramatically, and they're able to be in a higher level of vibration all the time. And you can get to a point where the things that are going on around you don't bother you anymore, and they don't need to bother you. And you can stay on a high level, and you don't necessarily have to have a bad day anymore. I think it was Wayne Dyer talked once about his guru, who said that in my world, I never have a bad day, something to that effect. And this is part of that, because you see, all that emotional baggage that you've accumulated during your life is dragging you down and keeping you anchored to the earth, and in the sense that they're keeping you from ascending, really. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully that helps. It's
oh yeah, that you have such an eloquent way of explaining all this, and I love that analogy of the cup. And I do a lot of physical modalities with people and think about, we use that bucket or cup analogy, and we think about, a lot of us are focused on the environment and how that affects us, but we need to look at emotions, right, too, as that's filling our bucket and then filling our experience. And as I figure out my own perspective, it's like, how do we become more resilient and able to, no matter what comes our way, for us to handle it with the ease and grace that you're sharing, and having the clarity to navigate these experiences. So no, I think that was a beautiful explanation. And I want to touch on, because I've experienced your work through other practitioners who are trained in your work. And I know that you have this concept of looking at the heart wall and looking at how many of us are walking around with that part of our field, or that part of our physicality, being distorted and affecting our interaction with life and within our body. And so, and I've been studying also a lot about how the heart has the strongest magnetic field and electromagnetic field in the body. And it really is the great conductor of our field and our physiology. And so can you just walk us through what this heart wall concept is, and how that you feel like a lot of people are walking around with this as well?
Well, absolutely. First of all, a little bit about the heart. It was back in the 1960s, after doctors started doing heart transplants for the first time, that they started noticing a strange phenomenon where people would come back in who had had a heart transplant, and they would tell the doctor, I have memories of being now in places that I've never in my life visited. Or they would say, my taste in food or sports or music has completely changed. Sometimes they would say that their handwriting had totally changed to someone else's handwriting. And in every case, when these people were connected with the family of the heart donor, they would find out, oh yes, that's our son's handwriting that you have. How bizarre is that? Or they'd find out, well, yes, our daughter visited Rome every year, and now you have memories of being in Rome, but you say you've never in your whole life visited there. Those must be her memories. How crazy is that, right? So there are whole books written about this. It's called Cellular Memory. Well, the ancient peoples believed that the heart was the seat of the soul and the source of love and creativity and romance, and really that the heart was the core of our being. And in the West, we've never really given any credence to those old ideas. We know that if it's Valentine's Day, if you're lucky, someone's going to give you a heart-shaped box of chocolates, right? And with these ideas about the heart are in every society and go back since time out of mind historically. And so it's really interesting about the heart, and some of the things that you mentioned with Heart Math has done research, and they found that the heart puts out this energy field that's 12 feet in diameter. When you're feeling love or affection for another person, your heartbeat becomes measurable in their brain waves and so on. So there's this fascinating communication going on from heart to heart with all of us all the time. Well, we had this situation where my wife had a dream in 1998. And as I'm trying to help her decipher this dream, I have this experience where it's being shown to us in an interesting way what was going on with my wife. Now, my wife was born into a very volatile family. Her dad was kind of a rageaholic, and it was kind of unsafe. And so by the time she was 2 years old, we found she started to put up a wall around her heart. And that wall was made of her emotional baggage, literally from the trapped emotions in her life. So she put up this wall and gradually added layers to it as years went on. And so when I met her, she already had this wall. And the price she paid for having this wall, it's literally like a force field really around the heart. We call it the heart wall. And 93% of people have this. And so you probably have this. And the price my wife paid was that she never really felt like she belonged anywhere. Even with women, friends that she'd known all of her life, she always felt like she was kind of the odd person out, like she didn't really belong there. It was easy for her to feel depressed, to feel anxiety, hard to feel positive emotions, easy to feel negative emotions. And so when we cleared all of those energies from her heart wall, all of a sudden, her life shifted in a major way. And one of the next people that I saw that had a heart wall, one of my very favorite stories about this was this nurse who came in to see me. She had neck pain. And she'd seen a couple of doctors for her neck pain. They hadn't been able to help her. And so as I was talking with her, she told me that she was a nurse. She was single. She was 38 years old. And she had not dated in 8 years. And she very emphatically told me that she was never going to date again, ever. And she was essentially celibate. She was going to live the rest of her life as a single woman. And she was an attractive person. And I thought, that's kind of strange. And I asked her, so why do you feel that way? And she said that 8 years before, she was really deeply in love with this guy who dumped her and broke her heart. So I tested her and found that she had this heart wall phenomenon. There were 3 trapped emotions, 3 layers of emotional baggage surrounding her heart. And all 3 of these had happened during that breakup from 8 years before. So I cleared those 3 emotions from her heart wall. And this is what we teach people how to do in the course and so on, and in the book. And when the last emotion was gone, the heart wall was gone, and suddenly her neck pain was gone. And that's why she'd come in. And so she left the office feeling totally fine. And I didn't see her again for 3 months. Right. And 3 months later, when she came back in, and I sometimes I get emotional telling this, but I looked at her and I said, "Hey, I haven't seen you for a while. How are you? What's going on?" And she said, "My neck has been fine since I was here, but she said, you cleared that heart wall from me, and that really works." She said, about 2 weeks after I was here, I found out. Well, I ran into my childhood sweetheart, and she said, I found out that he's been living right around the corner from me for almost 8 years, and we're dating and we're in love. And I think he's going to ask me to marry him. Right. And now think about this. Okay. She had this wall around her heart. Her childhood sweetheart was living right around the corner for almost 8 years, the whole time that she'd been single. And why did she never run into him before? Because she had this wall. And you see, when you have this wall, what it does is it interferes with your ability to really connect with other people. And your ability to give and receive love is really hampered. And it also interferes with your ability to really create, you see. And I've been telling people for years, that the best ideas that you'll ever have will not come from this brain. They will come from this brain, from your heart brain, because we now know the heart is a brain. It's got lots of gray matter and white matter in it, and it stores, I believe, a blueprint for what your perfect life can be. And it also is where we store all those real affinities that we have, the things that we really love. Those are stored in the heart. But think about this. 9 people out of 10 have this wall around their heart that they've put up. And on an individual level, it's causing so much grief and so much inability to achieve people's potentials. But also on a macro level, on a global level, it's affecting the whole world. And so it's part of our mission is to teach people about this, and they can learn how to do this themselves. And then imagine, what if 9 out of 10 people that you know have this? What if 90% of the people in your family have a heart wall? They do, and most likely. And you can learn how to do this, and you can learn how to release those heart walls from your loved ones, and it can change everybody around you, and it can change you too. And it's amazing. I mean, we get testimonials every single day from all over the world. We've got over 10,000 of these testimonials. And so many people write in to tell us how their life has changed. One of my favorite ones is from a woman in Italy who came in a year or so ago. She said that she sent in a picture of herself and her husband in front of this little village in Italy where they live. And she said, I'll never forget reading this for the first time. She said, for years, my marriage run badly. And that was her, kind of broken English. And she said, but then she said, I got a new husband. And I thought, oh, okay. The story is about how she got a divorce, got a different husband. But no, what happened was she hired an emotion code practitioner in Budapest who worked on her husband remotely and cleared her husband's heart wall. And she said, now it's like I have a whole new husband. He's so loving and so kind. And she said, it changed my life too. So I think this is one of the most powerful things that you can do for yourself is to get rid of that wall. And it's made of emotional baggage. And you have other emotional baggage too. I mean, we all do, but for the vast majority of us, we have that wall that we've put up, and getting rid of it is critical, not only for your ability to create more and to give and receive more love and find your soulmate and so on, but it also has to do with your physical health, because your heart communicates to all the cells in the body all of the time. In fact, your cells communicating with the brain in your head, and your brain in your head is obeying the messages sent by the brain that's in your heart. It's really interesting. And so when you start to remove that wall, it helps physically. I spent about 20 years in practice working with people. During the last 10 years that I was in practice, most of the people that I worked with had been told there was really no hope for them, no help for them at all in Western medicine. And what I found was how important it is, how important it is to get rid of the emotional baggage that you have. But if you've got a heart wall, that also is a critical piece of that puzzle. So if you want to be as healthy as you can possibly be, and yet you've got this big wall around your heart, you have to get rid of that, see? And there are so many stories about it that I could tell you, but it's just so important that you think about this and take this seriously, because it can change your whole entire life, getting rid of that wall, and you don't even know that it's there.
Yeah, no, what a beautiful story. And, your work is very powerful on many levels, but I think this is, such a key piece of it. And, the more that I've studied, from learning now from you and, the heart math people and the Dispenza people, and, this whole idea of, the more you learn, it's like, we're walking around, these are all diseases of the heart, right? This is all, this, we all need to heal our hearts, right, around anything that's impacting us physically. And I love how you also mentioned, Dr. Nelson, that connection, right? That it's not only good for our physical bodies and our souls and spirits, but we connect with each other through this field, and we connect and we can influence and affect the planet, as well. And so I think this is such powerful work and really foundational to really any treatment approach or any treatment path. If you're listening out there and trying to recover from being sick, you have to look at this. And so, Dr. Nelson, I'm sure everyone's thinking, okay, like, how do I release this? Who do I work with? Where do I go from here? And so I know you've been trying to get your work out to more and more people. And so you've developed a course and a way to train people in how to assess and release these trapped emotions, as well as release the heart wall. Can you walk us through that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, so Shift Network, I'm very grateful that they've contacted me about putting together a course for them to teach people how to do the emotion code, how to use it. And so some of the things that you'll be learning in this course, if you join us, will be how you can do this on your loved ones, on your friends, on your family members, how you can find and release people's heart walls. You're also going to learn how to use the emotion code with animals. And I've told people for many years, once you learn how to use the emotion code for people, you automatically know how to do it for animals, because there's really no difference, because we use the same chart of emotions. Animals experience emotions just like we do. They become trapped in their bodies, and 90% of all of their behavioral or physical issues actually have emotional roots. And so that's really a lot of fun for people as well. You learn how to use this for kids. You'll learn how to do it at a distance, at really any distance. And that's nice, because, you can work on your brother-in-law or your friend who has a migraine, and maybe they're in another state, or maybe they're on the other side of the planet. And once you use the emotion code and you see how you can get immediate changes in how people feel, and people feel better right away, your life will change. And when you're working with someone that's far away, and maybe you're on Skype or on the phone or something, and maybe they're in Europe or China or something, and you have an immediate change in how they're feeling, and you help them to function better and feel better, your life is going to change even more, because you realize, wow, there's really no limit to this.
Love it. I'm so glad that you put this together and made this accessible. And I loved how you're empowering, people within their, community and their family system. They don't have to be, a MD or a DC or a PhD to learn this, that this is accessible for many people, and really empowering to have access to these tools. So you don't have to rely on, hopping to the doctor's office all the time, or, having to do that. I love that model. I think that's really, really empowering. And it's a journey of self-discovery, I'm sure, as well as people go through this course. They learn not only how to help others, but so much about themselves as well. So thank you for putting this together.
Oh, absolutely. It's just a joy, really, for me to see people become empowered. In fact, that's our company purpose, is healing the world by empowering you. So that's what we do.
Love that. Is there anything else on your heart, Dr. Nelson, to share with the audience as we wrap?
Well, I would just say that this work is really so fun, and it's so easy. It's so powerful. You have to try it. Don't be afraid. You don't need to have any kind of background in healing at all. Children are learning how to use this work and getting great results around the world. So you can too. And it's just so wonderful to be able to cut yourself loose from all of that emotional baggage that you've been carrying around, and finally start to ascend and develop your ability to give unconditional love. I think that's what it's about. I mean, to me, that's the most important thing that we can do, I think, because when people die and they go to the other side, and then they come back, sometimes that happens. They're the only ones we hear from, right? Those people that come back, oftentimes they say they had a life review. And in the life review, they're never, ever asked, well, how big of a car did you drive? Or, how expensive was your home? How much money was in your bank account? They're never asked things like that. Instead, they're asked things like, well, how much did you learn? And how much love were you able to develop? Your capacity to love others. How were you able to develop that? And that's all about this work. Forgiveness is part of this work too. Sometimes there are people in our lives that we can't forgive, and sometimes it's us. And when you remove that emotional baggage around people that have hurt you, or around the things that you've done that were dumb, then it facilitates our ability to forgive. And there's so many aspects to this, but I really hope that you'll join me for this course. It's really going to be a lot of fun, and you're going to learn some mind-blowing things, and it's going to change, I think, potentially your whole life and the lives of those that you love as well.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for following your heart and the inspiration that you've had in your life to create this work, and help so many others heal their heart wall, and really release their trapped emotions. So thank you so much, Dr. Nelson, for being part of the summit as well.
Thank you, Christine. It's really so great to talk with you.